Again, good morning to everyone, and welcome back to our series, our Lenten series called Scandal, as we think about how Jesus was put in trial in front of the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. An article in the National Geographic years ago told the story of a young man who was badly burned in an explosion in Pennsylvania. And in order to save his life, doctors covered him with the skin of a donor and some skin that had been cultured from a stamp-sized piece that was all that was left of his own skin that had been left unburned. So later a journalist asked this young man, Do you think about the donor who saved your life? And the young man responded, to be alive because of a dead donor is too big. It's too much. So I don't think about it. Friends, considering that you and I are alive because of someone who is willing to die for us is too big, too much for us to even ever totally comprehend. But we must think about it. We must remember it, reflect on it. As we focus on the passion of Christ, the suffering and death of Jesus on our behalf, it's time for us to think about what that means for us. It means that you and I have been loved with a love that is amazing, that we have been loved with a love that is indescribable. As the children said, a love that isn't fair. It is so indescribable and amazing. Jesus gave his life willingly so that you and I could have life abundantly. By his suffering and death, Jesus didn't just identify with us. He put his skin in the game for us. All of it. He gave everything to save us. He offered his perfect innocence to us. He was the perfect kid. He was the only perfect one, and he offered that perfection to us to save us. He could not have been more undeserving of what he went through. I mean, you have the only perfectly innocent one in all time gets treated in the most horrible way of all time for us to save us. So last week we heard about the alliance, the council of the people, the elders of the people who had put that illegal trial together at night, and they found Jesus guilty. And they found him guilty because he claimed to be the Son of God, and they didn't believe that he's the Son of God. They didn't believe that he's the Messiah. So now, in order to get him killed, they have to take him to the Roman governor for that law to be carried out. And so our text today from Luke chapter 23 is about them taking him to Pontius Pilate. Here we go. Then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king." Do you notice how they changed the accusation? They changed the accusation in front of Pontius Pilate. They didn't come in front of Pilate saying, "Oh, he claims to be the Son of God." Pilate wouldn't have cared. They changed it to say, "Oh, he's causing trouble for Rome. He's an insurrectionist. He's telling people not to pay taxes." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." He could see that Jesus was innocent. Even though they were making these claims that Jesus is all this trouble for Rome, Pilate could see that he was innocent. But they insisted he stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here. So they're still trying to play that card that he's causing trouble for Rome. On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and found no basis for charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us, as you can see. He has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and release him." But the whole crowd shouted, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us!" Now, Barabbas had been thrown into prison for insurrection in the city and for murder. So they wanted this guilty man to be saved, and they wanted Jesus, this innocent man, to go to the cross. Now, Pilate could see the injustice of that. Pilate could also see the hypocrisy of that. Because what charge did they bring to Pilate? Hey, he's causing all this trouble for Rome because we care so much about Rome. He's an insurrectionist and he's telling people not to pay taxes. Well, they didn't want to pay taxes either. He's telling people not to pay taxes. He's causing all this trouble for Rome. And so Pilate's kind of like, okay, I'm going to call your bluff. You think he's causing trouble for Rome, and you care so much about Rome and people who cause trouble at Rome, then who would you rather have free? This guy who actually is causing trouble for Rome? Like really, really bad man, Barabbas, who actually is causing insurrection and murdering people, if you care so much about Rome? Or this guy who is innocent as can be? And who they want? They want Barabbas. Because they didn't care about Rome. They didn't care about the peace. They didn't care about any of that. They just wanted Jesus dead. But yet Pilate could see the injustice of it, as well as the hypocrisy. So wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again. But they kept shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore I will have him punished and then release him." But with loud shouts they insistently demanded that he be crucified. And their shouts prevailed. So even though Pilate knew that he was innocent, their shouts prevailed. And so Pilate decided to grant their demand. And the decision was made. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. Scandal of scandals. The sinner goes free, and the innocent man goes to the cross. How could they? How could they? As this kid said, it's not fair. How could they? Well, how could I? How could I? So let's stop thinking about they and them. Let's start thinking about me and I. How could I? Because I am the guilty one who is walking free. And Jesus is the innocent one walking to the cross for me. I'm the guilty one walking free. Jesus is the one walking to the cross for me. That is what we think about during this season of Lent. Now, did you grow up observing the season of Lent in your house? Maybe, some of you, maybe. Lent isn't in the Bible. Lent was established in the 4th century as a way to help people prepare their hearts to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And so one of the common practices of Lent is to give something up. Did you ever give up something for Lent? Today, a lot of people give up. They give up things like dessert, sweets, smoking. TV, certain foods. And for some people, Lent is more about going on a diet than getting closer to God. And actually, some people even give up things that they never do anyway. I'm giving up exercise for Lent. Well, whether you are in the habit of giving something up for Lent or not, I want to challenge you to give up something that will help prepare you for Easter. I'm not asking you to give up movies or social media or crumble cookies. I want to challenge you to give up something much more personal. Something that maybe you've been holding on to with a white-knuckled grip. I want to encourage you to let go of shame. It's time to let go of shame. Would you be willing to give up shame? To release the guilt that has been weighing you down. If you've been carrying around shame and guilt from something you've done, would you be willing to give it up for Lent? I can't think of a better way to celebrate the good news of Easter than by receiving forgiveness for something that you've done and experiencing the grace, the undeserved love of God. I mean, we're talking about decisions today. That would be a good decision. Because Jesus went to the cross, you and I have been set free. Let's thank God for that. Let's worship God for that.